We all know Sega, right? Sonic the Hedgehog, Yakuza, Jet Set Radio, some of the last truly cool gaming franchises out there. Everything else is just corporate AAA slop, am I right? You know what I'm talking about. But what if I told you that the Sega you know, the one that you grew up with, the one that you trust, is just a facade? That the company you've been supporting for years is hiding a much darker truth? It sounds realer than you think. To understand this, we have to go back to, let's say, 2004. Sega had spent 9 years straight without turning a profit. 9 years! They were bleeding money. They were struggling to survive. And what do? They merged with a company almost nobody outside of Japan had ever heard of, Sammy Corporation. Now, the official merger statement sounds perfectly corporate. The CEO said, "We will merge both companies' technological development prowess and graft Sega's internationally recognized brand onto Sammy's high-growth, high-earning structure." Sounds normal, right? A little awkward, sure, because, it's corporate speak. But what exactly is this high-growth, high-earning structure? Is it investments, stocks and all that? Is it tech? They mentioned technological development. No, ladies and gentlemen, it is gambling. Pachinko machines, slot machines, casino-style games. Sammy has been doing this for decades. They are one of the biggest gambling corporations in Japan. This isn't a small side project. This is the core of SegaSammy Holdings' profits. And let's be real now. Gambling is predatory. Full stop. It exploits addiction for profit. It's controversial. And in the West, the States, Europe, it's bad PR. Really bad PR. Yet here we are, almost knowing almost nothing about Sammy Corporation. On the surface, Sega Games and Sammy Corporation seem separate. You might think, okay, they merged, but they're independent. But that's not the whole story. The trick is a holding company. Think about it like this. One parent company, SegaSammy Holdings, owns 2 subsidiaries, Sega and Sammy Corporation. It's the perfect disguise. It's like one brand owning 50 different, or one company owning 50 different brands. In the West, you see Sega, games, coolness, attitude, nostalgia. In Japan, Sammy handles the gambling, the profits, the exploitation, the heavy lifting. The parent company collects all the money while the brands keep their separate faces. And here's where it gets wild, ladies and gentlemen. The profits, they overwhelmingly come from the gambling side. This is SegaSammy Holdings' financial year 2024 report. Not a small chunk, not a side hustle. The gambling is the main part. Let's read this out, ladies and gentlemen. Entertainment contents, games, IPs, 318 billion yen. Pachinko, 133.2 billion yen. Gaming alone is only 1.9 billion yen. But let's look at the operating income, all right? 28.9 million for entertainment contents. For Pachinko, for pachislot, for gambling, 41.6 billion yen. They are the most profitable part of SegaSammy Holdings by far. The gaming division often operating at a loss. Ordinary income, adjusted EBITDA, you name it. The company survives off of sheer gambling, not games. And yet, most of us never saw this. When you bought a Sega game, you were indirectly funding a global gaming empire. And this is intentional, ladies and gentlemen. The West sees Sega, the nostalgia, the Sonic, the Yakuza, the Persona, I think. The East sees Sammy Corporation, gambling, pachinko, exploitation. They both profit, but only one side is visible. This even shows up in the games themselves. Let's look at Sonic Rumble, for example. After the franchise proved profitable, the mobile tie-in game had some of the most predatory monetization I've ever seen. $46 skins, multiple battle passes, 3 battle passes, ridiculous stuff. That's not Sega calling the shots. That's Sammy Corporation. That's the gambling mindset bleeding into the games. That's the exploitation mindset, mind you. And it doesn't start there. You think Nintendo was anti-consumer for using a patent infringement lawsuit? What the fuck? Sega did that stuff too. They sued Memento Mori developer Bank of Innovation for $6.7 million over patent infringement. Dutch courts even forced SegaSammy to complete a $148 million stake logic acquisition. Another gambling front. Gacha lawsuits, casino deals. They bought a South Korean casino. You don't see this in the West. You only see Sega pretending to be better than Nintendo, cooler than Mario. It's all a facade. Since 2004, Sega has been a mask, hiding the insane profits and exploitation of Sammy Corporation. You think that you're supporting games, but you're supporting gambling. Sega doesn't make the money. Sammy does. And it's really insane when you really stop and think about it. I love Sega games. Yakuza, Jet Set Radio, masterpieces. But seeing the company I grew up with tied to predatory gambling, it's not fair. They've built a system where Western gamers are shielded from the truth, while the real money comes from exploiting others. And they've done it brilliantly. And that's why I made this video. Game journalism is back and I'm leading it. Not none of these game review nonsenses. We're bringing it back. Investigative journalism. I'm reaching out for the truth, Persona 4 style, ladies and gentlemen. You thought Sega was a gaming company. You were wrong. It's a two-faced empire. And now you know the truth. Tomorrow, we're going to dig into more predatory companies. So, if you really rock with that, if you really want to be a part of this new movement, part of this gaming awareness movement, like, subscribe, comment, share, do anything, ladies and gentlemen. We as consumers, we as people need to be aware. All right, I'm done. Damn.